It is finally here. It is time to talk about the 2025 offseason for the New York Mets, and it's an entire episode dedicated to the biggest free agent this offseason, potentially the biggest free agent in the last couple of years, sans Shohei Ohtani, because it is the Juan Soto episode of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Welcome in, Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie here with you, and that's right. This entire episode is dedicated to one man, one player, one free agent, that being Juan Soto. Jack, I said to you when you hopped into the recording studio, I said, I am ready to talk about Juan Soto with my good friend. That was literally all I said to you, and we both smiled because we both knew what this podcast episode would become.
I am so excited and intrigued by Juan Soto as a player, and I cannot wait to dive deeper into what makes him such a coveted free agent in this offseason. Because, like you said, other than Shohei Ohtani and I guess Aaron Judge, Juan Soto is kind of the player you'd want to start a ball club with. So he's going to have a whole episode for us today on Bleav in Mets.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot to get into with Juan Soto. But before that, got to tell you about Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to Bet Online today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. Bet Online, the game starts here. Now, I kind of lied a little bit. Okay, I told a tiny lie because I said this was the one. I said that this was the Juan Soto episode, and it is the Juan Soto episode. But the Mets made a trade, so we can't do this entire episode without discussing a move that the Mets have already made in the 2024 offseason because they acquired Jose Siri from the Tampa Bay Rays. And I got to tell you, before we even dive into Jose Siri, this is a player. I don't know what you're going to think of Jose Siri, but he is the roller coaster ride of a player when you look at what he does well, what he doesn't do well, what his role is on this team. There's a lot to unpack here. So I will let you kick it off here, Jack, as Jose Siri traded to the Tampa Bay Rays for Eric Orsi.
Yeah, so if you were listening to us last episode, we were recapping every reliever from the Mets in 2024, and Eric Orsi was one of them. He was not one of the more prominent ones. He played in 2 games for the Mets in 2024, pitched 1 2/3 innings total. The first was a 3 earned run allowed, 0 out outing against the Pirates, leaving his ERA at infinity. The next one was a little bit better, 1 earned run in 1 2/3 innings against the Braves. He came in to relieve Kodai Senga after Senga's calf injury. And now he's on the Tampa Bay Rays. So he was the player that the Mets sent in, and in return, they got Jose Siri, who is a defense-first center fielder with elite speed and a solid base running profile. If it wasn't clear, the Mets are prioritizing defense, especially up the middle. Obviously, they have Francisco Lindor, who should have been a Gold Glove candidate. They had Harrison Bader last year, who was another defensive-first center fielder. Now they get Jose Siri, who profiles pretty similarly to Harrison Bader in a couple of aspects. Davey Andrews of Fangraphs laid it out this way. At the time of his signing, Bader was 29 and had posted a career WRC plus of 90, while averaging 20 outs above average per 150 games. Right now, Jose Siri is 29 and has posted a career WRC plus of 89, while averaging 19.1 outs above average per 150 games. So
Jose Siri is the Harrison Bader replacement because the Mets were done with the Harrison Bader experiment. They had a good time. They got more out of him than I think any of us could have anticipated because of the injury history that Harrison Bader had. He was healthy the entire year. He was available the entire year. But I think you kind of saw, at least to me, you saw a player that he was available all year, but he kind of ran out of gas because he's not used to being available all year, right? He's used to spending maybe 40 to 50 games on the injured list throughout the year, and that didn't happen. And so he was available, and I think he just ran out of gas. And this is what David Stearns does, right? He likes defense. He likes to prioritize defense with his bench. He likes to prioritize outfield defense, up the middle defense, short, second, center, right? He prioritizes it. But he also doesn't let people who are defensive-minded guys overstay their welcome. He'll just rotate through guys like this. He will churn through defensive-first players. And Jose Siri is the next guy up. And look, it's not like you're losing a ton of offensive output by replacing Harrison Bader with Jose Siri. And Jose Siri is not going to get you a lot of offensive output. He's going to hit a bunch of home runs when he makes contact with the baseball, but he's not going to make contact with the baseball a lot of the time. But you got yourself a defensive replacement late in the game to put in the outfield that can make plays. And that's what the Mets were always going to look for, whether it was Bader coming back or somebody else. And we can now say, without needing to move any further into the offseason, the Mets have their defensive outfielder that they want in their rotation. Check that box. We can move on to discussing Juan Soto here on the show.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about Jose Siri too much. There are just some wild things that Mets fans are going to have to put up with, I guess, for lack of a better word, because Jose Siri is one of he's literally the worst player in Major League Baseball right now in terms of strikeout percentage. He strikes out at a higher rate than any other player on an active roster currently, which is not ideal.
Is that good? Not good.
But he also hit 18 home runs last year and 25, I believe, the year before that. So, he has terrible numbers as far as his whiff, K, and chase percentage, but he's a guy that can barrel the ball, and when he gets a hold of one, he drives it. So the Mets are pretty much getting a 2 true outcome center fielder here, defensive first, as we mentioned, but he's quite literally either going to strike out or hit a home run. And when he hits those home runs, it'll be great, but the strikeouts will be, I wouldn't say expect Jose Siri any higher than the 9 spot in the lineup this year.
Yeah, look, this is a guy who isn't going to make a ton of contact with the baseball, but when he does, it's going to mean something. Yeah. And the Mets have to hope that when he does make contact with the baseball, it comes at key moments and not in blowout games where the home runs don't matter. They want however many home runs he hits with his team, whether it's 18, 20, 25, however many home runs he hits, they want them to be impactful. They want them to mean something to this team because that's about it. That's what you're getting with Jose Siri. And then on the other end, he's going to prevent runs with how good he is defensively. Let's do it. Let's do the thing. Let's discuss the most coveted free agent this offseason, the belle of the ball, the crown jewel, the player that everybody is tripping over to try to get a meeting with, to try to talk to try to convince, to try to give the sales pitch to, Juan Soto. 26 years old, a free agent that young, hitting the open market is a rarity in this sport. And he's been in New York last year, started his career with the Nationals, went to the Padres. You know all of that. There's a lot of layers to Juan Soto's free agency. I think we should start with the easiest part of it. And I've come with props today here for the show. This is the perfect reason, if you're listening to us in the podcast feed, to go and watch the video version, because I think I can do this correctly. I hope that I will be able to present this screen correctly, because I have for everybody. Juan Soto. It's up on the screen right now. Everybody can see this. I have Juan Soto's Baseball Savant page from this past year. And if you'll notice, there's a lot of red on this Baseball Savant page. 100th percentile. That's right. 100th percentile in expected weighted on base, expected batting average, walk percentage. 99th percentile last year in expected slugging, barrel percentage, hard hit percentage. 98th percentile in average exit velocity and chase percentage. Only 94th percentile in bat speed and squared up percentage.
Only 94th? Oh, no.
He's a good baseball player. The easiest part of this conversation, Juan Soto, excellent at baseball.
Yeah, so the crazy thing about Juan Soto and his free agency, like what makes him stand out so much is his age, because he just turned 26 years old. He will be 26 for the entirety of the 2025 regular season. And I think the best comparison to make as far as recent free agents to Juan Soto and the kind of profile and the age situation that whoever he ends up with will be getting is Bryce Harper, who also hit the open market at 26 years old, or before his age 26 season. The difference between Bryce Harper and Juan Soto, though, when you really get down to the brass tacks, Juan Soto, since he debuted in 2018, has consistently been one of the best hitters in all of baseball. Every single year that he has played, he has had, according to Baseball Savant, in the 94th percentile or higher in batting value. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
And this past year, he was literally 100th percentile, as you mentioned. He has bonkers numbers for a guy through 7 seasons. 36 plus WAR wherever you look on Fangraphs or Baseball Reference. He has a career batting average of 285. He is the active leader in Major League Baseball with a 421 on base percentage, and he has a 532 slugging as well. Good for a 953 OPS, which is the third of all active baseball players, behind only Aaron Judge and Mike Trout. Good baseball players. A 160 OPS plus, which is also the third active, behind Aaron Judge and Mike Trout, and a 158 weighted runs created plus, which is fourth behind Aaron Judge, Mike Trout, and Yordan Alvarez. So as far as career numbers, there are really not any players right now that you would want over Juan Soto besides maybe Aaron Judge. And then you look at what Juan Soto did in 2024, and it only kind of gets better. Everything he took to a new level when he got to New York. He had a 7.9 B-WAR, Baseball Reference WAR, 8.1 according to Fangraphs, 288 batting average, which is above his career, 419 on base, which was second only in MLB this year to Aaron Judge, 569 slugging, which was fourth, and a 989 OPS, which was third to Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. Good baseball players. And again, this guy is 26 years old and can be locked up for many, many years.
This doesn't happen. Players that are this good, this early on in their career, don't hit free agency. You don't get a guy who in a contract year at age 25 hits a career high in home runs, is one shy of his career high in RBIs, has the highest batting average he's had in over 3 seasons, and has a WRC plus of 180. That means he's 80% better than the league average hitter. That player is hitting free agency at age 26. You are getting the peak years of that player. You are getting the peak years of a player who up until this point has been worth a career number of a 158 WRC plus, who has a career batting average of 285, like Jack mentioned, a career on base percentage of 421. You're getting that player's peak. What he did in 2024 is just the start of his peak as a player. That is what is available to you in free agency if you are willing to fork over the dollars. It is that simple. I think everybody is doing this enough justice, but I want to further emphasize it. This doesn't happen in baseball. A player of this caliber at this age, where you could get him for this long of a control with a contract, doesn't happen. This is a unicorn. And I think where we should start this conversation, because we need to dive into the financials of what it means for the Mets. This is a unique situation, and the Mets are right in the middle of it. Like this, if this is the Wilpons, we're not even having this conversation.
No.
But we have Steve Cohen as the owner of this team. Steve Cohen has set this team up. David Stearns has set this team up for this moment. All of the money that has come off the books, all of the money that Steve has shown a willingness to invest into this team has been geared up for this player. Yeah, they tried for Yamamoto and offered him $350 million. Yeah, they've talked to players. Yeah, they signed Scherzer. Yeah, they signed Verlander. That's all well and good. This is what they've been gearing up for years. This has been the moment, and now the Mets are right in the middle of it, and according to everybody in baseball, they're the team that everybody's the most afraid of. It is a wild time to be a Mets fan. It is crazy that we are able to even have this conversation, but it's not hyperbole. The Mets are probably the favorite to land Juan Soto. They are the favorite to land a player that has all of the statistics that we just mentioned to you. A player that thrived in New York last year and led a team to the World Series along with Aaron Judge, but was a main part of the reason why they made it to the World Series. Hit 41 home runs in New York. Hit 288. That player is available, and the New York Mets are one of, if not the favorites, to land that player. That's the conversation we get to have here today on the podcast.
The thing about Juan Soto is that he is in rare company as one of the few players that literally all 30 teams want on their team. Like, there is not a team that if they had the chance would say no to signing Juan Soto.
The Tampa Bay Rays want Juan Soto. The Sacramento A's want Juan Soto. The Chicago White Sox want Juan Soto. Everybody wants Juan Soto.
And what makes this offseason so unique for us Mets fans, Chris, is the fact that, like you said, the Mets are in on this player. They're in on the highest profile free agent in the offseason. I have never experienced that before, in which the Mets were the team that were the favorite to get a guy who is, again, I really can't emphasize this enough, 26 years old. He just turned 26 at the end of October. And like, I want to drive this point home so heavily, because most of the free agents we're going to talk about this offseason are going to be 30 years old and probably a little bit older. When you think about a guy like Pete Alonso, who the Mets will probably be in talks, will definitely be in talks with to return and play first base. Pete is 30. So you're getting, the tail end of his career, most likely. You're going to get part of his decline, which will still be good, but he's 30 now. Juan Soto is 26 years old. Signing him to a massive contract this offseason means you're not just getting that declining period, which undoubtedly will also be good. I can get into the profile of a hitter he is as well a little bit more later. But you're also getting him for his prime. For 4 years of his late 20s, Juan Soto will be on your team and in the top of your lineup, hitting rocket home runs whenever he comes to the plate. And that is what makes him so special, because of that age and because the Mets are in on a free agent of his caliber. It feels like banana land. If you told me 3 years ago this was happening, 6 years ago this was happening, I tell you no way.
I hate to use this term because it really doesn't apply in baseball, but I think it applies to Juan Soto. In today's baseball game, it's really hard to be good at everything as a hitter. Juan Soto is the perfect hitter. He does everything well. You want him to hit for average? He hit for 288 last year. He's had multiple years of his career where he's hit for over 300. His career batting average is 285. You need him to hit for power? He hit for 41 home runs last year. He hit for 35 the year before that. You need him to drive in runs and be a run producer? He's put up 109 RBIs each of the last 2 seasons. You need him to be a decent base runner? Okay, he's not great at it, but he's not awful. He's not an albatross. He gets on base, a 419 on base percentage last year. He draws walks. He doesn't strike out. Like, he does. If you were molding the perfect hitter, it would be Juan Soto. That's who it would be. That player is available in free agency. And so last year it was all about Ohtani, and rightly so. He's a unicorn. Juan Soto is a unicorn as well. And I think you're going to see how much of a unicorn he is when we see the final number, because I think everybody's wrong on what this number is going to look like. I think everybody has misjudged what this number is going to look like.
Yeah. I think another part of what makes Soto so special, and I mentioned it just a little bit ago, but his profile as a hitter, you called him perfect. And I agree. And that is part of what makes him a unicorn, is because there isn't one thing that he does specifically well. Like, across the board, like you said, hit for contact, great. Hit for power, great. Those are things, particularly with the power, that can maybe decline over the course of your career. It just kind of is what happens. It's part of when we talk about Pete Alonso a little bit later in this offseason. That's going to be part of the conversation, is what is he going to look like when he's in his mid to late 30s? How much is that going to affect what the Mets are willing to pay him on a longer term deal? Juan Soto hits for power, yeah, right now. But what makes him so out of this world is his plate discipline. For a 26-year-old player, he has earned the reputation of guys like Joey Votto, who in his career had a phenomenal on-base percentage because of the way he drew walks. Juan Soto knows what the strike zone is better than any other player in Major League Baseball right now. And to further illustrate this point, Chris, there are 4 players in the entirety of Major League Baseball history that drew walks at a higher clip than Juan Soto did. I'm going to list them. I'm going to list those 4 players for you right now. Okay. These are the only players with a higher walk percentage than Juan Soto. Ted Williams, good ball player. Barry Bonds, good ball player. Someone named Max Bishop,
Philadelphia Max Bishop, yes.
Who I have never heard of before today. And then Babe Ruth. So you're getting a guy that, if nothing else, if absolutely everything else goes wrong further down the road, and we can talk about how long that will be, if everything else goes wrong, he's still going to be elite in terms of his plate discipline, in terms of his knowledge of the strike zone, and in terms of getting on base. And that is another part of what makes Soto such a special free agent, is to have that at his age of 26 years old.
His worst year of his career. If we just look at WRC plus, the worst year of his career so far, he had a 143 WRC plus in 2019. This was the stat line he had that year. 282, 401, a 548 slugging percentage. He hit 34 home runs and drove in 110 RBIs. That is his, by weighted runs created, his worst year of his career was that season, in which he hit 282, hit 34 homers, and had a career-high 110 RBIs.
And
again,
that was his second year in baseball.
He was
in
20.
Major League Baseball.
Like I know we just keep trying to find new ways to present this present to everybody, but we have to. Like, this player doesn't come around in free agency, and so you hear all these people like, oh, might take a 13-year contract, a 15-year contract. You might have to pay him $50-60 million a season. Do you understand why that can be okay? Do you understand why paying one player $50 or $60 million a season could be valuable? Because of how good the player is? Like, that's the reason why we're going through all of these examples. It's why Jack's bringing up Max Bishop here on the podcast, and I, while he was reading it, looked up where Max Bishop played and was able to tell you he played for the Philadelphia A's, because I didn't know that before Jack went on the conversation. That's how good Juan Soto is, that we're comparing him to players that played for the Philadelphia Athletics.
Yeah. And he literally is the fifth best player in baseball history at drawing walks. And that includes Barry Bonds, who drew the most intentional walks over his career of any player ever, and Babe Ruth, who probably also drew his fair share of intentional walks. When you get into the caliber where you're comparing players to guys like Ted Williams, Barry Bonds, and Babe Ruth, you're getting someone special. And Chris, I cannot emphasize this enough. Juan Soto is 26 years old.
26.
He'll be 26 for all of 2025. It's not like he's 26 now. He'll turn 27 in May. He's 26 for all of 2025.
It's insane that we are here. Can I steal something that you put on the notes here for the
Absolutely.
audience? This will be the last thing, and then we'll get into the actual Mets conversation here. Here are all the players that Juan Soto, I'm sorry, these are not all of them. These are just some of them. Jack just picked a couple of them for everybody. These are some of the players, just some of the players that Juan Soto has a higher career on-base percentage than. Mickey Mantle.
Good ball player.
Frank Thomas.
Good ball player.
Edgar Martinez.
Yeah.
Stan Musial. Wade Boggs. Todd Helton. Manny Ramirez. Do you see what we're talking about here? This player is incredible. What this player is doing, we have not seen this. Even Barry Bonds at his peak wasn't doing this. A-Rod at his peak wasn't doing this type of production. And maybe we're able to better value it because of the new metrics that we have. But a player that is doing stuff like this, we have never seen hit free agency. Now, I think it's important, and you have it written down here, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are some quote-unquote elephants in the room when it comes to having this conversation. Which one of these would you like to address first, Jack? Which one of these do you think is the most important thing that people are going to bring up so I can yell at them for why they're wrong?
I think, Chris, it has to do with the base running and the fielding, because when I look at particularly the New York Mets subreddit, that is what people point to the most, or those two things are what people point to the most as reasons to not bring Juan Soto onto the team, is because his base running, frankly, is poor. It's just bad. He was a 15th percentile in base running value in 2024, and his fielding does not profile well either as a minus right fielder. If you watched any of the playoffs, you would have seen, some of the issues he had. He ranked 38th percentile according to Baseball Savant in his fielding. But Chris, when you look at the player he is and the batter that he is, I just don't see why his fielding and his base running should be any reason that the Mets are hesitant to bring him in.
Okay. So let me address the base running thing first, because I said earlier that his base running is not an albatross, because I think we need to define base running for the sake of this conversation.
Sure.
Juan Soto is not a menace running himself into outs constantly. Juan Soto just doesn't have a ton of speed on the base paths. He's not going to take a bunch of extra bases. Let me look real quick. His career high in stolen bases one year, he stole 12. He's not a speed demon. He's going to maybe have a tough time going first to home on a ball in the gap. Okay, Fine. You know what? More often than not, Juan Soto is going to be hitting the ball over the fence, and he can just take his time rounding the bases. I'm okay. I'm good. Is it perfect? No. But let me let everybody in on a little secret. And Jack, I don't think we've told everybody this before, so let me be the first to let everybody know. He's 26. He can be coached up on how to be a better base runner. Is he going to be perfect by any stretch? No. But he's 26. I'm not talking about signing a 33-year-old power hitter who's been a bad base runner for a decade. I can't coach that. I can't make that person a better base runner. Can I maybe work on the side with a 26-year-old Juan Soto to make him a better base runner on the margins? Yeah, I think I can do that. I think that's in my arsenal of tricks. And oh, by the way, he was a minus fielder. Yes, all the metrics say he was a minus fielder. This should tell you everything you need to know about baseball. He was a Gold Glove finalist in right field this year for the American League.
He was.
So he's not terrible if people are putting him up for the Gold Glove finalist in right field. And by the way, he's going to be the DH a lot of the time. They're going to move him around. He can go play first base at some point. He can DH a bunch. He can play right field. He didn't. All right, I'm ready to poke the bear today on the show. I'm ready to do it. He's not the Yankee outfielder that missed a ball in the outfield in the World Series. Wasn't him. Wasn't Juan Soto who did it.
That's true.
I don't want to be that guy, but the guy who dropped it in center field is supposed to be a great defender.
Yeah.
Juan Soto didn't do that.
A couple other points I want to make about, Juan Soto's fielding, and that is probably the biggest concern that I've seen people raise. There's a guy named Starling Marte who played for the Mets in 2024.
Yeah. Are you going to tell me his base running numbers? This is going to make me
No.
puke.
I don't have it up in front of me right now, but Starling Marte's fielder value was not even 38th percentile. In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, it was below the 10th percentile in fielding value that Starling Marte brought to the
his fielding
Mets.
run value was 7th percentile.
Yeah. So, and Chris, I don't know if you heard,
yes,
the 2024 New York Mets made it within 2 games of the World Series. They went to the NLCS.
That's correct, yes.
With a guy who wasn't exactly the best in the outfield playing right field.
So, okay, hold on. I'm going to throw some numbers at you. I'm going to emphasize this. Last year, Starling Marte, his range was 5th percentile.
Bad.
His arm value was 57th percentile.
Fair.
His arm strength was 90th percentile. Keep those numbers. Keep those numbers. Juan Soto last year, 14th percentile range, so better than Starling Marte. 90th percentile arm value.
Right.
And then 48th percentile arm strength. Okay. Better fielder than Starling Marte.
Yeah. And that's my first point. My second point is, Chris, you know who else was a bad fielder and a bad base runner leading into their free agency at 26
I do, because
old?
it's on the notes. It's on the notes. I know who it is, yes.
Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this about Bryce Harper now, Chris, or if you didn't know this in the past. Bryce Harper used to play right field. He was the right fielder for the Washington Nationals for many years. He, I think, played some center sometimes and maybe some left, but primarily right field, like, Juan Soto.
Mm-hmm.
You know what position Bryce Harper plays now?
Bryce Harper is the starting first baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. First baseman.
Oh, okay. And not only was he the starting first baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies, he also was a Gold Glove finalist this year at first base for the Philadelphia Phillies. Do you think, Chris, that the Phillies, when they were in negotiations with Bryce Harper, they thought, great hitter, but I really don't know about those fielding numbers. I don't know how that's going to profile down the road. I don't know if we're going to end up regretting this because of Bryce Harper's fielding numbers. Do you think they regret any part of that contract at this point in time?
Looking at somebody who had a batting run value in the 96th percentile last year for in all of baseball, and somebody who has a 94th percentile walk rate, a 90th percentile expected WOBA, a guy who hit 30 home runs last year and hit 285. No, I think they're okay with his defense. I think they're okay with that.
So I'm going to take everything that people are saying about Juan Soto's fielding and just not even think about it.
I'm throwing it in the trash can.
Toss it in the trash.
Yeah, I'm throwing it in the trash can.
Think about it ever again, because I don't care what Juan Soto's numbers look like compared to any other right fielder right now in the field. I care about what his numbers look like at the plate, because that is a spot, that is a thing that he does better than literally 99.9% of MLB players in baseball history. So I don't care about the fielding. I don't care about the base running. Now, the contract is going to be the second
All right.
Or the third point here.
I'll
and
debunk
Chris, I'll
that
let you
here in
take
a
the
minute.
floor there.
I will get to those people in a second.
Okay.
If Juan Soto was the exact same fielder he was last year, this year for the New York Mets, is anybody going to complain? The Yankees got to the World Series. So his defense couldn't have been that bad. He couldn't have been that terrible out there. His base running couldn't have been that bad. They were basically a two-person offense for 6 months of the season.
Yeah.
So it can't be that bad. Now the contract's another thing. And this is the thing that really bothers me. And I'm not even going to hit people with the it's not my money, I don't care, spend it. That's not even the argument that I'll make. Although it's a good one. If Steve wants to spend the money, he's going to spend the money. It's fine. Not my money, who cares? But the big thing is, oh my gosh, you're going to pay this guy $50, $60 million a season, or you're going to pay this guy for 13 or 15 years. I've been saying this for weeks now. It's not the first time I've said it on the podcast, but it is the nice little island I've carved out for myself because I've seen nobody else in Mets Twitter bring this up, and so I'll be the person that continues to bring it up. Juan Soto signs, he's 26, he signs a 14-year contract with the New York Mets that takes him through his age 40 season. Okay? We'll forget what the number is. We'll do that conversation second. He signs a 14-year contract that pays him through his age 40 season. Let me let everybody in on a nice secret. Juan Soto will opt out of that contract. He will never play out the original 14-year deal. It will never happen. Because I'm going to tell you right now. He's going to sign this deal, and there's going to be an opt-out after his age 30 season, or before his age 30 season. He's going to have an opt-out, so he's going to play 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. That's going to be age 26, age 27, age 28, age 29. He's then going to have an opt-out built into this deal, so he can opt out at age 30 and sign an even bigger deal when the new TV money comes in, when the new CBA is in place, and he's going to sign another deal. So you can put a blank check in front of him. This is why I have zero. However many zeros need to be on the check to get Juan Soto to sign for the New York Mets, I'm good. He's opting out of the deal. If you don't think Juan Soto over the next 4 years is going to be one of the best players in all of baseball, then I don't know what to tell you. He's going to be one of the best players in all of baseball. He's going to be a top 5 player in baseball over the next 4 years, and then he's going to opt out of the deal. And then, if he chooses not to opt out of the deal for whatever reason, there's going to be another opt-out built into it, like 3 more years down the road when he's 33, at like the halfway point of the deal. So this idea of, oh, they can't give him $700 million. The New York Mets are only paying $700 million out to Juan Soto if he, for whatever reason, has a career-ending injury in the first year, and the Mets then have to pay the contract out. They'll definitely have insurance on the deal regardless. So it's not that big of a deal. That's the only way they're paying out the entire length of the deal. It's the only way. So I don't care how many zeros there are. I don't care how many years there are. You get Juan Soto for the next 4 years because guess what? If you sign Juan Soto right now, you get his peak. You get the 4 years where he's going to be the best. Give me Juan Soto for those 4 years. Give me 4 years where I have swings at the bat to try to win a championship. I'll deal with the rest of it later because there is such a higher percentage chance that he opts out after his age 29 season, going into his age 30 season, and he gets money someplace else than it is that he stays through the entire length of the deal. So when it comes out, and you see 13, 14, $15 million, 15 million, or 12, 13, 14, 15 years, however big the number is, forget all of it. You just need to see when the opt-outs are because that's going to tell you everything you need to know. There are going to be multiple opt-outs in this deal. I would not be surprised if there's an opt-out like every 2 seasons in this deal. Like that's how weird this deal is going to be structured because it is a unicorn that he is a free agent at 26. He is going to want to maximize that over and over and over again. So please, I don't care how big the contract is. I don't care how long the contract is. The Mets will never pay out that full amount. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. I think, especially when you look at some of the contracts that particularly Scott Boras, his agent, has handed out over the last couple of off seasons, that's kind of been the same or similar case, right? Like a guy signs a many multi-year deal and then has an opt-out after either the first year or after a few years down the road so that they can, both Soto and Boras can maximize the amount of money coming in. And I think for value, if you're paying Juan Soto, one player on your roster, $50-60 million a year, that's okay when you have the richest owner in baseball who just cleared up a massive portion of payroll this past offseason and also brought in a guy like Jose Siri, who's making literally 10%, less than 10% of what your starting center fielder was last year. So like, I'm not concerned about any part of the full value, the average annual value, or the length of this deal, because like you said, I think there's just a really, really good chance that there's going to be some kind of opt out and the Mets are not going to be on the hook for forever.
The Mets' final payroll last year was $336 million. That was what their estimated final 2024 payroll was. Right now, after making the trade for Jose Siri, their estimated payroll is $163 million. Yeah. If you paid, I'm going to go the most extreme end of the scale. You pay him $60 million a year for an AAV for the sake of this conversation. You're at $223 million. That is $113 million. Did I do that math right? 223. Is that what you would get to? We were at 336 last year. That is $113 million to spend on the rest of your roster just to meet 2024 levels of spending.
If you want to.
If you want to.
Which you don't have to.
You don't have to. This is a good team. You have Francisco Lindor. You have Brendan Nimmo. You have Juan Soto. You need to sign a pitcher or two. You could get everything you need for another $75 million and be right around 300. So, in fact, you could sign Juan Soto to $60 million a year, spend an additional $75 on the rest of your roster, and decrease your payroll by $30 million from last year and fall under another luxury tax threshold.
Yep.
Let me make it clear. Let me make it clear as possibly I can make it. There is zero reason the Mets should not put as many zeros as Juan Soto wants on the check. I don't necessarily believe this in sports. I believe it here. It is a blank check. It can be whatever it wants. He wants to co-own the team with Steve Cohen. Give it to him because he's going to opt out of that too.
Yeah. To that point, Chris, and I sneak peeked this to you, before we started recording here.
You started to say something and then you said, I'm saving it for the show. That was the sneak peek. I have no idea what this is.
You might have seen this already, but to the point of you can put as many zeros on the end of his check as you want to bring him in. There have been multiple reports around baseball, the most recent of which came from ESPN's Buster Olney, that Steve Cohen, his pitch to Juan Soto and Scott Boras and their camp was, listen, guys, you're going to get a lot of deals this offseason. Whenever you get whatever you think is the best deal, come back to me, and I will add $50 million to that number. That is reportedly what Steve Cohen's logic is for bringing in Juan Soto.
All right. Let's play this out, because people are like, $50 million. What? Over the course of a 15-year deal, let's say it's a 15-year deal, that's an extra $3 million a season.
Right.
That's what Steve Cohen is offering. Steve Cohen's not offering a lot. It's an extra $3 million of AAV per year. If it's a 10-year deal, it's an extra $5 million. But you know what? Here's the best part. And I've seen a lot of people, and there's people in the New York sports market who are Mets fans. And I'm not going to call this person out because I actually really respect this person. They are one of the reasons why I'm in the line of work that I'm in sports radio, in media. And I like this person. I just fundamentally disagree with him on this. He doesn't like that Steve Cohen is just throwing his money around. I'm here to tell you, I absolutely love it. I love it. I have been through enough nonsense with this team that I deserve this. And if other teams have a problem with it, then you get a Steve Cohen. Because I didn't have a Steve Cohen for a really long time. Now I have an Uncle Steve. Uncle Steve's in my corner. Uncle Steve's in our corner. He's being a fan, and he wants the team. If he wants to throw an extra $50 million at Juan Soto to make this deal happen, and other teams can't do that, I'm sorry. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem.
Right. I want to quote the Cespedes Family Barbecue guys, Jake Mitz and Jordan Schusterman. Good dudes, know a lot about baseball. But they brought this point up when talking about the 2024 Los Angeles Dodgers, who, by the way, just won the World Series.
It's true.
There are a lot of people online in the baseball community that say something along the lines of, oh, well, the Dodgers just bought that championship. They spent $1 billion in the offseason. It would be more embarrassing if they didn't win the World Series. But isn't that kind of the point? Like, if you have the resources to bring in a player of Shohei Ohtani's caliber, of Aaron Judge's caliber, of Juan Soto's caliber, isn't the point to spend that money on those kinds of players to improve your roster, to be able to compete for championships. Isn't that kind of what baseball's all about? Like, and what made the Dodgers World Series this year more of an outlier than I think people realize, the Dodgers have been spending money like this for a long time.
Yeah.
The Yankees have been spending money like this for a long time. The Dodgers have won the World Series twice in the last 5 years, but before that, things weren't going so well. The Yankees haven't won the World Series since 2009, and they're still spending money. So it's not about how much money you spend. It's about spending it in the right place. And it's if you have the resources to spend it on a special player, you can do that. It's not going to guarantee the Mets are going to win the World Series, but there's no reason that when you have the resources of the richest owner in baseball, there is no reason to not go after one of the best players in baseball when he is a free agent and 26 years old.
Right. If your response to the Mets paying more than everybody else for Juan Soto is this is bad for baseball, then my question to you is, when is Steve Cohen allowed to spend his money? Because if it's not for Juan Soto, who's it for?
Right.
Who's it for? There is nobody. If this is the player to do this. Now he kind of did it with Verlander. He did it with Scherzer. Those were mistakes. He tried to do it with Yamamoto. He offered more than the Dodgers did. He tried, right? This is the player to do it for. And if they do it, I legitimately, Jack, and I mean this honestly, if they sign Juan Soto, I don't think I will look at the number more than once. Like, I'll see what the number is. We'll talk about it here on the show, and then I'll immediately forget about it because Juan Soto will be on my baseball team. We will get to discuss Juan Soto trying to help the Mets win a championship in 2025.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are we doing here?
I think my reaction will be pretty similar to when the Mets traded for Francisco Lindor and then gave him a big extension. I don't really care what the number is. There are people who brought it up when Lindor struggled in the early part of this season, and he just finished second in National League MVP voting. Francisco Lindor is on my baseball team for the next, 7, 8, 9 years. So I don't really care how much they're paying him because this season alone was enough to make me think that was worth it. And if Juan Soto is doing what he did last year for the Yankees in Queens, please, I will never look at that number ever again.
This is a legitimate question. Do you know what Francisco Lindor's AAV is?
I have no clue.
It's $31.9 million.
Underpay.
He's going to be paid $34.1 million this season. I don't care.
Underpay.
I don't care. They're paying him $34 million, and their estimated payroll right now is $163 million. They're fine. So everyone who talks about it being an overpay, it's only an overpay. It truly is only an overpay if it limits you from doing other stuff. It doesn't. Francisco Lindor's $34 million is not stopping them from throwing $60 million a year at Juan Soto.
And if they signed Juan Soto for $60 million a year, as you recently laid out, that wouldn't restrict the Mets doing anything either, including bringing back guys like Pete Alonso.
Right.
Like,
everything's on the table.
They could do whatever they want.
Literally,
with the kind of resources that Steve Cohen has, with the kind of roster construction that David Stearns has put together, and with the payroll coming off of the books this offseason that it did. Like, the world is the Mets' oyster. Juan Soto is the pearl in that oyster. There is zero reason to not be offering him the highest dollar for however long it takes.
All right, let's end it with this. Point blank, let's just say it like it is. Juan Soto signs with the
Mets.
It's the New York Mets. I at the end of the day, he's a Scott Boras client. He's turned down big contracts from almost everybody else. He wants the most money. The person that can and will offer him the most money is Steve Cohen, is the New York Mets. That's where he ends up. Like, I don't think this is, I think this is just, this is, what is it, Occam's razor? The easiest solution is the right solution? Like,
yeah.
That's what this is. The New York Mets have the one resource that is going to determine how this plays out. Like, money is going to be the end-all, be-all. The New York Mets have it.
Right. And, like, even if that weren't the only factor, like if Juan Soto wants to go to a winning ball club, good news. The Mets just went to the NLCS and were 2 wins away from playing your Yankees last year. Like, this is a winning ball club. That's been proven. And now they're about to pay you maybe $60 million a year.
Well, you see why we needed to do a whole episode on Juan Soto. There is a lot to unpack with Juan Soto. There is a lot to the baseball player. There's a lot to the ramifications of it. Now, that doesn't mean that it's the end-all, be-all, right? The Dodgers could very easily decide to do the same thing Steve Cohen's going to do, dip into their hedge fund pockets and offer him a lot of money. The Yankees could decide to buck their recent trends and spend even more than anticipated, and they try to keep Juan Soto. It's all within the realm of possibility. But at the end of the day, I still think he's going to end up as a New York Met. And I think the entire market overall, I think some people will sign, but I think the entire market overall is being held up as we wait to see what happens with Juan Soto. So now that that's in the rearview mirror, now that we've done the Juan Soto episode, we will come back next week, have a couple episodes for you, continue to look at this offseason. Maybe we'll start with our perfect offseason, what we would want the Mets to do. Maybe we'll start there, and Jack and I can each put together our own list. We won't share it. We can reveal it together, and then we can continue to get into some of these rumors as they come up for the New York Mets. But we appreciate you listening. Please rate, review, subscribe, share the podcast. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us out a ton here as we continue to grow this show. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We will talk to you next week, and as always, let's go Mets.
And real quick, just want to reemphasize, if you're not a fan of listening and you like to watch, we do have the podcast episodes going up on YouTube as well. That's where you can see Chris sharing his screen of Juan Soto's Baseball Savant page, which features a lot of red. So if you prefer to watch your podcast, you can check us out on my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Jack McKessy, McKessy. And make sure to subscribe and leave a like, leave some comments. We read all the comments, and we'd love to get more feedback from you all. So that would be much appreciated as well. But Chris, to echo your sentiment, let's go Mets.